Like I said, Gary Booysen standing by from Rand Swiss to join to speak more about those movements that we saw on the day. So the day quite different from what we saw yesterday, Gary, in that it was quite a muted trading day. Now globally we are seeing that all eyes are on the Fed agenda, the earnings season in the United States. What would you say locally informed the volumes that we saw today?
Certainly, there's an enormous amount of news coming out, as you say, on the economic front, on the international earnings front, and on the local earnings front as well. So we had a massive amount of corporate updates coming out today. Just about all of our retailers dropped trading statements. That helped to lift the likes of Shoprite up 4.71%. We're still digesting some of the resource counters news, with Anglo American Platinum, for example, having released their results yesterday, but also helping to lift the bourse around 3%, or at least lift their share price around 3%, which is obviously buoying the resource index. And of course, Cura, RCL, Pick and Pay, just the list goes on. So a lot of news. Unfortunately, we're not seeing the kind of the positivity that we saw in the local market playing out overseas. And we do have the US markets down around 1% at the moment, NASDAQ down a little bit more than that.
Mm-hmm. Let's get on to those company updates. Like you say, Gary, there's quite a few of them. And let's start with Shoprite. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Sales improving quite significantly in their reporting period. What did you make of that trading update? I mean, it's a great indicator of what those interims are going to be looking like in a few weeks.
Absolutely. So this was a 52-week update from Shoprite, and as you said, fantastic sales growth. So sales growth, a little bit impacted, maybe coming off a slightly lower base because they obviously had to deal with the civil unrest. They had around 231 stores shut in the last period, which is obviously helping to elevate the numbers slightly. But really strong. Sales up 11.6%, doing well locally, and which accounts for about 80% of their revenue, but also in their non-RSA stores, also up even a little bit more strongly than that. The only kind of disappointing spot was maybe their furniture sales. They were down around 1.4%, but it is a very small component of Shoprite's overall business, only accounting for about 3.7% of overall group revenue. So very strong. Nice to see that they managed to contain their selling price inflation at just 3.9%, which is well under where the food price inflation for CPI is up at 7.1%. But we did see that starting to accelerate in the second half, so that moving up to about 5% in the second half. So the idea that we are going to see cost increases coming even from the likes of Shoprite, and us as consumers are unfortunately going to have to tighten our belts.
RCL not tightening its belt, going out on a bit of a spending spree, Gary, getting Sunshine Bakery. Your thoughts on them going for that particular business and the opportunities that it will present for RCL in terms of its standing in the market?
Well, I think this is part of RCL's strategy, really, to beef up their value-added brands. I think it's an interesting time to be buying into a bakery business. Obviously, with the Ukraine conflict, we've seen grain prices increasing, which really has squeezed baking margins as those input costs have just skyrocketed. At the same time, that's probably the best time to be buying into a bakery, when they're feeling a little bit of pressure, and someone like RCL could come in and potentially get a very good price. And when things start to normalize, they might do very well. So they are expecting the transaction to conclude. It's still got some regulatory hurdles that it needs to go through. They're hoping to conclude it by the 30th of November. But all in all, it looks like a good deal. And they didn't give us too much in the way of what they paid, but certainly in line with the strategy that they've been following.
Woolworths, what did you make of the update that they shared with us today? Improved or a lifting of many of the restrictions in Australia and New Zealand, helping the business a little bit. Overall, what did you make of it?
Yeah, so this was also a 52-week update. Obviously not releasing results nearly as positive as the likes of Shoprite, and really just struggling in the Australian territory. So looking at David Jones, which has been a very difficult component of their business for a while now, their comparable numbers down 2.5% in terms of sales. Country Road did seem to turn around. So if you look at if you look at the comps, they're up around 4%. So Australia doing okay, but as you said, really just impacted by the kind of supply chain challenges because of the Ukraine, but also the at least the more severe lockdowns in Australia just hampering their overall numbers. So group sales growth only up 1.4%, which is a little bit more lackluster But again, it's unfortunately the geographies that they're operating in.
Gary, as always, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Gary Booysen from Rand Swiss giving us a wrap of the markets day. Lots of updates from South Africa's big retailers there. Some improvements, but some like Shoprite just shooting out the lights with those numbers. And still